Hello and welcome back to another exciting training session. It's your man, White Wolf, and today we're going to be going over emotional development, covering overcoming attachment. That being said, let's buckle up, get ready, and prepare to level up. So, the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is define what we mean by attachment. If you type in the definition of attachment into the Google search, you get an extra part or extension that is or can be attached to something to perform a particular function. A deep and enduring emotional bond that connects one person to another across time and space. The feeling of closeness and affection that help sustain meaningful relationships over time. A feeling that binds one to a person, thing, cause, idea, or like. And so, as you see, we get a range of definitions, but I don't feel like they quite hit what attachment is, or at least how I define attachment. The definition that I use for attachment is an emotional, physical, or mental connection to anything. Yeah, pretty short and sweet. When we start talking about attachment, I think it has a lot of negative connotation to it. But we are born into attachment. We start creating attachments from our parents, from our livelihood, from many different sources. And when we talk about attachment, we have to understand it comes into many different stages or levels. Attachment can be in the form of people, places, toxins, ideas, causes, things, pretty much literally anything. We can be attached to literally anything. And that's also why we see that really we can develop certain types of addictions towards anything. We can develop certain types of compulsions in so many different realms. When we talk about attachment, it's pretty natural for us to start connecting to things in a certain type of way. But what we really need to understand, or what I would really like to try to convey, is that in order to overcome attachment, we have to learn how to release, how to let go. But before we can even get to that point of letting go, we have to develop understanding, the right understanding. Ultimately, I don't believe that attachment is necessarily a bad thing. We all connect to the world, to each other, to life in many different ways. But it is vital that we develop the right understanding, so that way that attachment doesn't turn into toxicity. So that way we're able to recognize that the only consistent truth that we will all face is that things will always change. I would like to start out with a quick little example. Right now, we're in a place in our world, in our society, where we're in this middle of like this weird gender war between man and woman. And the thing is, there's no competition. We need each other. It's unity that's the key. We cannot sustain life or this world without both men and women. When we look at our children, at babies, when we are first born, it takes a man and a woman to have a child. This child is heavily dependent on the mother when first born. There are certain characteristics and attributes that only women have and that only men have. That being said, both men and women have masculine and feminine energy inside themselves. Women are the only ones who are able to give birth and who are able to feed the child from their body. And so That feminine energy is very nurturing. That baby needs that nurturing energy. It helps give him that or her that sense of self-worth, that sense of love, of guidance, of compassion. It lets this baby know that it is secure, that it's taken care of, that it can grow and develop while it just tries to do its baby thing and learn life. While at the same time, it's vital for the father to be able to create a space, an environment that can protect, grow, and develop the mother and the baby. Now, there are only certain characteristics that would be found only in women and only in men. An example of this would be for women. Only women can give birth and feed the child from their body. For men, at our base level, men are designed physically stronger than women. Now, of course, with nowadays technology and new advancements, there are a number of varying variables that start to play with this type of ideology. But from the get-go, from the base design, these characteristics can only be found in men and women. Going back to our example, men are able to create this environmental space of growth, development, and safety because we gotta look at some of the realities of life. The animal aspect of life, that survival of the fittest aspect of life. The woman needs to be able to give that baby the nurturing type of energy, that nurturing feminine energy that is needed to grow and develop in the proper way. The man being physically stronger, and both men and women having certain mental and emotional components that enhance each of them. Men are just able to be that frontline defense, to be able to protect, to be able to handle danger and certain types of methods. That's not to say that women cannot handle danger, but when there is a threat, a man has a far better chance of handling it because of, just in this one example, that physical strength component. Now, if we take the man out the picture and we only have the woman and the baby, then the woman has to step into that role of protecting, of developing and creating an environment where they can grow. Survival principles will always take priority because survival of the fittest. If you do not live to see the next day, then it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. So that base level security is always going to come first. And when these individuals, for this case, a woman, steps into that aspect, that masculine aspect, then that nurturing aspect, that feminine aspect, starts to not be able to be given to the child. And in many cases, this is another way of us creating blockages within the child, blockages within ourselves, creating generational curses. And this is not just women and baby. This is also men and baby. Men are able to create that environment, create that space, that development space, that good type of safety, security aspect. However, men don't have that type of nurturing aspect that a woman can provide. And thus, the baby is going to still miss that type of component. Even though the survival aspect comes first, we as human beings are more than just having to survive. For a long time, humanity has just been surviving. And as we've ascended and grown, we finally came out of that place of having to survive. Both principles are needed in order for us to reach a higher level of understanding within ourselves and able to grow our children in a proper and healthy manner. Now, because of technology and advancements, we have many different types of ideologies saying we don't need you and we don't need you, which none of that is true. Even though we're able to, we have what we call it, the great equalizer. Women are more than capable of defending themselves, hands down. We have guns, we have weapons, we have a number of different tools that make it easier nowadays. But that still doesn't fix the component of them stepping into that role and having to take away their feminine energy from the child, from that nurturing aspect, and to focus it into different areas. Right now, we have the capabilities of inserting sperm into egg through artificial means. And so now we're trying to say that certain aspects are not needed. Though technology is an amazing component, you still need man and woman. You still need the sperm of a man, the egg of a woman. And at this point, I'm pretty sure we're at that place of technological advancement where we're able to take the egg, take the sperm, not even need the human anymore. Now we're going to start processes of incubation and thus taking the human mother and father out of the picture completely. And what we're starting to do to ourselves through this different type of ideology that we don't need each other is just going to hurt everybody in the end. So the point of this being that from the moment we are born, we are creating attachments with our mother and with our father in different ways that are both vital and essential. Now, nobody confuse my words. Any person can accomplish great achievement in whatever they desire, no matter what people say, no matter what society says. As an individual, whatever dream you have, that does not matter when it is not based off of the gender that you are. Anybody can accomplish great, amazing, wonderful things. But characteristics of men and characteristics of women, they both have certain aspects that they are born with, that is inside of their DNA. That there's nothing wrong or bad about that. But we can acknowledge that there are certain aspects to men and certain aspects to women that they both have an enhancement in those areas, in those fields. Now, that being clarified, we still have to recognize that even though there are certain aspects and components that are enhanced in women and that are enhanced in men, because of blockages within inside individuals, it might not even matter. When you have gone through parts of your life that have created trauma, that have created darkness inside of you, and you do not heal from this darkness, it doesn't matter what components you have inside of you, you will create negativity around you. You will send out negative energy because hurt people hurt people. And it is vital that we recognize that no matter what you are, man, woman, you still have to develop and work on yourself. Because if you're a woman with blockages, you can easily lose. Just in this one example of nurturing, you'll lose that nurturing aspect. And with men, if you have blockages in yourself, just using this one example, you can easily lose that component of developing your physical strength. Now, I'm using these one examples, but there are many different attributes and characteristics of not only man and woman, but as a human being. And it is all of this, all of those characteristics of being a human being, that these blockages will start to deteriorate. And then we start to create these generational curses because we're passing it down through our bloodline, through our families, because we haven't healed ourselves. And now that all that is said, let me go a little bit into my life, for example. Let me talk a little bit about my parents' upbringing. When my father and mother were kids and children, their lives were very much different and way more harsh than my life, when I was a child. My father, he lost his mother at a very young age. He was living in a very rural area. Life for him was so drastically different than what we see nowadays as life. He had a very hardcore upbringing. The way that they treated children back then was nowhere near as kind as we do nowadays. My father had it rough. He wouldn't see his father very often at all, even though it was just him and his dad, his brothers. They had to fend for themselves at a very, very young age. They had to work. They had to learn, to grow, develop. The school system wasn't what it was nowadays. My father, when he got injured, when a horse kicked his leg and clearly broke the F out of it, they didn't go to the hospital. They didn't think it was anything to worry about. My father, to this day, his leg is all bent. You can see exactly where the horse kicked it. It had healed, but you can see the bend in his leg. Life for them was so much more difficult. And my dad, he lost his mom at a very early age. And just being able to see how his life experiences affected him to the point where he was raising me. I respect both of my parents. My father did an amazing job. He worked his freaking ass off. But nobody was perfect. I definitely seen certain aspects that I would consider blockages. One of those aspects that I noticed was my household was in a state of continuous anxiety and ice because of continuous conflict. It was so much fighting, but really it was more of my mom just yelling at my dad. And my dad, because of the way of his upbringing, he would shut off. This man becomes stone. He never lost control. He never lashed out. He never did anything aggressive. But he was so detached. Not just in that sense, but it almost seemed from life in many cases. My father was a man who worked damn hard. And then when he got home was just a lot of fighting. And as I already explained, when I was a child, I tried to step into a role of healing my family emotionally. I tried being that child that could help bring love, to help heal, to try to do my best to be an emotional support to both my parents. Because I could see both of my parents struggling in different ways. This aspect of detachment, I could definitely recognize now in my own life in certain types of ways. There's healthy detachment and there's unhealthy detachment. We can consider it that way. In the way of not being fazed by the negative, but also not being able to experience a depth of life. And that is one thing that I feel I see my father more nowadays, is starting to reach or go for in different areas more depth, more experience of life from being detached so deeply for so long. My mother, when she was a child, same thing with my father. They treated kids like way freaking harsher. They would freaking beat the shit out of kids. My mom didn't have a lot of parental supervision. Now, she loved her mother, but my grandma was on a level, staying out late, doing her thing, partying in some senses, but she worked damn hard. My grandma worked damn freaking hard. And my mom did have a father in her life. It was just her and my grandma. And some of the things I seen a lot in my mom when she was a kid, she would hang out in trees. She loved climbing trees. But she took a lot of abuse in ways. Emotional abuse, physical abuse. And as she grew, she really found her way in some cases. Once she left the house, she had a number of different adventures that helped shape her into the mom when I was born. Now, my mom nowadays is the most transformed individual I have ever met. I love my mom, and I am so proud of both my mom and my father. But when I was a kid, my mother was very aggressive. My mother was very conflict oriented, brought a lot of conflict in many aspects. It would just seem like at a drop of a hat, she would go off sometimes. And it would be the type of arguing and screaming and yelling that lasted for hours and hours and hours. And it made the environment very difficult, very icy. It was difficult for everybody. Because my mom had so much stuff that happened to her as a child and in her upbringing. And so I tried to step into a role of emotional support for her. And I remember, having great times with my mom, where we would sometimes hang out late at night and we would be eating super unhealthy junk food and we would watch Star Trek. I'm talking Voyager. And those were some of the most amazing times I had with my mom. And I felt like it helped heal her. I felt like I was being able to help support her. Because I could tell that she was hurting on the inside. I could tell that both my parents were hurting on the inside. And nobody's perfect. So, my upbringing when I was a child, because I could feel my household so deeply, and I tried to play this role of emotional support, I always felt like I was coming up short. I started to seem or feel like there was a level of nurturing that I didn't feel like I received. I would try to uplift my parents as much as I could, but there was a time where my mother tried to commit suicide. And that was a moment, a time in my life that really hit me and changed my perspective of things in many ways. For me as a kid, I would disassociate. One thing I did was I dived into video games. I dived into unhealthy food, specifically ramen noodles. Let me tell you, I would be throwing back them ramen. I'm talking about them cheap, like 20, 10 cents one. And they were ridiculously cheap back then. And I would have that huge case full, multiple cases. And I would just go through them. I would tear that ramen up while I was playing video games and just trying to distract myself from everything going on in my household. And after that happened with my mom, or even maybe before, I was unconsciously trying to find a level of that nurturing aspect, of feeling worthy, of feeling like my presence as their son mattered in some type of way, that I was important or that I was valued. And as I kept growing, one thing that really helped me, because I was a huge kid, I became fat. I was like 300 pounds. I was depressed. I was bullied. I felt like escaping the world. I just felt like I had no value. And I had a really good friend come into my life. And I call him E-Man. And he helped me so much in the darkest points of my life. He made me feel like I was seen. He made me feel like I had some type of worth. And I am just so grateful to have him in my life, because that's when things really started to change. As a kid, when I started turning the ages of 14, I was able to buy alcohol from the local liquor store right down the street. A nice Asian gentleman, and he was just super cool. And he just let me buy liquor from him. And so I had some friends, other friends, not just E-Men, and we would drink and started smoking weed. But those other friends, it just never got to the point that my relationship with E-Man did. He really helped me out. This dude was smart on a level that you wouldn't believe. It was like I felt like I finally could meet eye to eye with somebody. we would talk about all different types of things, all different types of conspiracy theory things that were true. And it was like we could see the illusions. It was like finally I had somebody in my life who made me feel not crazy or insane. And it was like I'm just so grateful to have this man into my life, because that really changed everything. Even though we were smoking weed and drinking, getting into weed changed my life so drastically. I was a heavy 300-pound dude who only played video games and was like recluse and just didn't feel like I mattered. And then when my homie came into my life and we started smoking weed, we started going on adventures. We would start to walk many, many miles far across the city. Woo, those were good times. We went on some real adventures. And he was my best friend. And though having those other means of escaping was not good for me, the alcohol, the weed, it was needed at the time. That I'm grateful I had that season in the way that it happened. Because finally, when I started getting later in my teenage years, my parents divorced. I had to choose between my mom or my dad, and I chose my dad. And that choice really just, it hit deep in my spirit and in my being. And I'm saying this because what I did realize was, at the time, I was chasing some type of validation, especially from women. Oh my gosh. The younger me had a huge problem with feeling worthy or feeling that I could even talk to women, or that I could be around, that I could just get a girlfriend or anything like that. And then my first girlfriend, oh my gosh, that was a train wreck that ended very much disastrous and really made me feel even more unworthy. And as I finished high school, I found my ex-wife, and that feeling of unworthiness really made me not pay attention to a lot of things. And as I grew, went through the military, did my thing, made some good homies. But one thing that the military is really good about is not developing attachment. You make some good friends that you'll remember for the rest of your life. But after 2-3 years, it's like, I'll see you later, homie. I gotta go somewhere else. You go on some serious kick-ass adventures together. You see people all over the world in different circumstances. And it's like, all right, bye, homie. I'll see you later. And that was something that helped me grow as a person. Being able to have that experience of meeting people, making good friends, and then having to leave. And going through the military, having my kids, and then near the end of my military service, finding Sadhguru. That gave me the understanding I needed in order to really start seeing how I was developing attachments, how I was keeping myself at a level, how I could rise my understanding, raise my level of perspective. into something that would help me so much more than I would ever imagine. And so that's what this is about now. Because now, after having so many different experiences and attaching to so many areas in my life and learning how to release them, I'm now at a place where I can explain how it was for me to detach. And so, before I say and get into that aspect, I just want to say to both my parents, who I hope can hear this part of the message, to my father, I love you so much. I respect you so deeply. Thank you for giving me an amazing childhood. Thank you for being the best father I could have ever asked for. To my mother, thank you. I love you so much. You were the greatest mother I could have ever asked for. You gave me such an amazing childhood. I am so proud of both of you. I am so grateful to have been your son. I am so grateful to have had this experience with you guys. And I love you both very much. And now, getting into how I overcame all these attachments. Because hearing back my story, I hope you can understand how deeply some of these attachments grew inside of me. And hearing how not only the attachments that grew inside of me, but how blockages inside of parental figures, inside of anybody, can cause generational curses to be passed down through our bloodlines by how we're affected, how our parents are affected, how their parents are affected. It trickles down in different ways. And so, how I overcame some of my attachments. Let's get into that. As a human being, we have this physical vessel and we're on this physical plane. But as we raise in our understanding of the world, we start to see the mental world, the internal world, the dream world, however you want to interpret it. That is the real world. That is much realer than what we see around us. The internal existence inside of ourselves, the inner world we develop, is what really matters. And this external expression is only a reflection. It is through the internal world that we learn to heal the aspects of all of it. All of those parts in ourselves that might be blocked. So as I was saying in the beginning, these attachments come in different levels. Some attachments are far easier to overcome than others. Some of the easier attachments that I overcome was like the porn, going to massage parlors, drinking. Those were pretty easy attachments to overcome in the very beginning, because first, it's whatever level you're at. It might not seem like they're easy when you are dealing with them still, and when you're still falling into compulsion behavior. But developing that right understanding first, being able to work on your energy, that will just give you the strength to overcome them way easier than you would think. The things that hurt us the most in the beginning usually, at least in my opinion, seem to be easier to overcome because they're more in our face. It's more like, I know that this is bad for me, that this is hurting me, that this is hurting my family, that this is completely taking me off my course. And so it's, in my opinion, easier to figure out how to cut that stuff out of your life. I used to be a big chewing tobacco type of guy. That stuff was destroying my gums, and I felt the pain, and I didn't like it. And developing my energy, developing my will, overcoming the fear, making those better decisions for myself, etc., that we always talk about. It made it easier to overcome that tobacco habit. Oh, and what really helped with the tobacco habit too was someone gave me a little bit of advice, and it was just keep telling yourself that you're sick. And so it's going back to that understanding. It's really about how we're programming ourselves for each one of these different attachments. But then as you keep development and you keep developing, there's only 2 rules about self-mastery. 2 mistakes, I should say. 1, not starting, and 2, not going all the way. And as you keep going, you start seeing these different attachments are layered amongst each other in different parts of your belief system, your definitions, and the way that you look at life and your perspective. Some of the harder attachments that I'm getting over now is like I basically have cut out my family, my mother, my father, my sister. And the reason is I'm at a point now where I'm really focusing on developing my energy, because I've just gotten to a place as you keep going and you keep getting stronger, you get more sensitive. You get more sensitive to the energies that are all around you. And for the level that I am at now, because I'm getting myself to a point of trying to be so focused and particular and really harmonizing myself in a more exact type of way. There's things that I can't have in my energy the same way. For example, one thing that, as I talked about in my story with my mother, was having that when I was a kid, we would eat junk food and watch Star Trek and have a good time, watch a movie, and that unhealthy habit of emotional eating is something that I'm able to recognize that I was still doing now as an adult. When I would go over there and hang out with my mom, I would fall back into a pattern of emotional eating. And the thing is, when you're around other people who don't follow the same type of rules, principles that you're following, it becomes very difficult to the point where they can't be around you the same way. There were certain things that I would see come out of my mother, whether it be the thing of guilt, whether it be pushing certain types of behaviors. I just couldn't be around it the same type of way. It's like when you're trying to get in shape and you have people around you who say, oh, it's only one potato chip. Oh, it's only one donut. It'll be okay. It won't hurt you. It's that type of mentality where when you start following certain principles, people who aren't following, people who are not on the same level that you're at for what you're doing, they won't understand what it is, why certain things are so important to you, why you have to be so focused in certain areas, why you have to be so consistent, why you gotta keep going no matter how it may look, no matter how crazy it might start seeming like things get. And so that was a really big attachment, because I started getting to a level in the principles and rules that I'm following. I had to separate myself from everybody, all my old family. Though I love you very much, I had to be on my own for I don't know how long, because I'm not planning on stopping anytime soon. And I only plan on getting stronger from this point. But that's what I'm talking about with attachment. It's the level that you're at. However you feel that you will overcome certain challenges, certain thoughts, certain toxins, people, places, it doesn't matter. All these things are different levels of attachment. It's where you are currently at and what you're ready to overcome that really matters, because then it's developing the right understanding. Let me talk about another different perspective of attachment. For example, my kids. I love my kids. I'm willing to go to hell and back for my kids multiple times. But here's the thing. Kids come through us. Okay? They're not our property. They're not our little clones. Kids have their own personalities. They have their own choices. They have their own decisions. And the most important thing that I've realized in teaching my kids is proper values, proper ways of handling themselves. Because, let me tell you, when I got back from the police station, after my daughter told all these weird fabricated lies, I had to sit both my kids down and not be accusing, not say why you lied, but to explain the importance that it is vital that you tell the truth, whether that's here, whether that's what's going on at mommy's, whether that be wherever you are in the world. The value of telling the truth is very important, because when you lie, you're going to attract bad things towards you that you're not going to want towards you. You're going to attract dishonesty. You'll attract people who are not going to have your best interest at heart. That's the same thing with any of these types of negative emotions, behaviors. It is important that we develop a good character. And this is what I'm explaining to my kids, because ultimately I had to tell both my son and daughter this. There are certain lies. There are certain things. If you do things in certain ways to destroy our relationship, a relationship is two ways. One person does not hold up the relationship. You both have to meet halfway. And if you choose to do negative action like lie, if you choose to say bad things about people that are not true, and if you choose to do that to me, to people that you feel like you need to, then ultimately there's a good chance that you cannot be here. You can't be in my household. If you want to lie about me and say bad things about me, you cannot be around me. And I'm saying this to my two kids because I love you. But if you try to tear me down and take me out, I can't have you near me. If you can't realize that ultimately we are a team and that we're working together, and it takes us for real working together in order to keep this ship moving, in order to keep our relationship strong, in order for us to be together, then ultimately we won't be able to. Children are precious, and I love my children, and I'll fight for them every step of the way. But I have to let them know that your actions, your behavior, that all matters. If you turn into a type of individual who is purely destructive, then I cannot be around you. More than likely, someone will take you from me. And that is the road that we would be choosing if you want to live that way. The thing with my kids, I'm prepared to fight for them every step of the way. But I've had them, when I first had that restraining order put on me, taken from me for 3 months. And then I fought every step of the way to get them back. And then having to go to the police station and do all that other stuff, and to see her specifically lying on me. It's like, look, you have to understand your actions have consequences. Every choice you make, every action has a reaction. That is a law of the universe. You can't just do things and think that things are going to happen. And ultimately, that's what I'm trying to provide to my kids, the knowledge more than anything else of how this world works, how they work. And I love them, and I want to be with them in my life. But if they go down the wrong road, I cannot be there with them. And I need them to understand that. And though it might sound a little harsh, I think that's a reality that a lot of men face with their kids, that they have to tell them and explain to them, hey, if you start doing certain things, if you start saying certain things, if you start turning into a person who spews lies, toxicity, then I can't be around you. And that's not going by choice. When it comes to attachment, we have so many different levels of attachment. And it's about where we currently are, what level we're currently at, and what we recognize that is the next challenge to overcome. Now, when I say attachment, the definition that I used in the beginning, an emotional, physical, or mental connection to anything. I mean, as far as literally anything. Even life itself is an attachment. We should all value life, and life is a very special gift. But there's certain places, there's certain lines. You have to have something inside of yourself. You have to be able to reach to a place inside of yourself to be able that no matter what certain things happen, I will be unmoving, I will be unshaking, I am willing to give it everything I got for this, what I'm trying to achieve. An example of this is the great Harriet Tubman, who was able to go and save many freaking slaves because she had the courage inside of herself. She was ready to freaking give it all for her freedom. She was willing to say, hey, I am only obligated to two things, and that is my freedom or death. And she fought. She went after what she knew was inside of her in her heart. I believe we all gotta recognize we are not the body, we are not the mind, we are not the emotions. We are something that lies so much deeper inside of ourselves. And me as an individual, I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And the final attachment, the final major attachment that I want to talk about, because I feel a lot of us might face something similar. As you heard my story, I've always had a problem for the longest time with unworthiness. Feeling unworthy from my family, from the female energy. And ultimately, there was a level of nurturing that I always felt like I was chasing, that I was willing to overlook bad behavior, that I was willing to overlook bad character. And now I finally figured out that I don't need nobody. I don't need no other person, because that nourishing, that female nurturing, I was able to find it through my spirit team. When we keep developing ourselves, and this is what I'm saying, the internal world the mental world, that's the real world. Because now that I'm just spending so much time there, it's becoming so much more real each and every time. And now, whenever I need that level of support, of that softness, I'm able to meet my spirit team literally inside of my meditations, inside of my thoughts, and I'm able to get that nurturing. I'm able to hug my spirit team for real. And it is the most warmest, powerful hug that I have ever gotten. And it brings me so much peace. It reminds me that I'm not alone in this. Like, for real, I'm not alone. And as I keep developing myself, now I'm at a point now where it's not even worrying about that female aspect, because I feel at peace. I feel complete on that side. I'm not worried about anybody caring about me. I'm not worried about people coming to my aid or to my side. I'm ready to take on whoever I gotta take on to make my dreams come true. I'm ready to go against the current, the wave. I'm ready to hold my mother effing ground and die on my feet. Because I know that I am capable enough of doing what I am trying to accomplish. I am worthy enough to make my dreams of creating heaven on earth a freaking reality. And I don't need a single freaking person to be by my side or to validate me or to encourage me whatsoever. Because God is with me. My spirit team is with me. My angels are with me. My ancestors are with me. My higher self is with me. I have a freaking army, a whole army of love and light backing me up. And that's all I need. And as I keep getting stronger, and I hope to encourage people to follow their dreams, that they're so much stronger than they know, and they don't need external validation because it all lies inside of themselves. And is learning to use the tools in order to reach a place in yourself where you start to see it, where you start to see the limitless possibilities that is each and every single one of us, because we are all divine beings. And I'm going to go leave it there, family. Ultimately, to overcome attachment, we must learn to release or let go. In order to learn how to release or let go, you must develop the right understanding. And so, this is going to conclude our training session for today. I hope everybody was able to get an understanding of attachment in just different ways. From the beginning, we start attaching to things. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's important that we develop the right understanding behind our attachment to things, behind our connection to things. Because as we keep going down that road of mastery, and you keep seeing how sometimes people, places, friends, things can't always come with you. You have to be willing to go the distance. You have to be willing to recognize that, hey, some things are just worth dying for. And once you reach that place in yourself, for yourself, I think you start to find that there's so much more strength that you didn't even realize you had. And yeah, thank you everybody for sticking around. If you haven't yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Go ahead, head to the Stand store, type in White Wolf 719. That's where you can get yourself a free Warriors of Light leveling guide. This leveling guide is going to help you get from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. By level 3, you have your own connection with God. You are working with God. You are heading towards your purpose, and you don't need anybody to tell you if you're right or wrong. So, trust yourself. Know that God is with you. Know that you have a whole army of light behind you, and that you are going to do amazing things in this world. And until the next exciting training episode, love and light leads the way. Have a beautiful day.